Carrie?
Yeah, two-parter. Who are your friends in the major media, and how will you use them and the internet to rebuild the party?
I don't know if any Republican has friends in the major media.
I didn't expect the full answer. I'm planting a seed here.
It will be, you know, I think number one, having a new chair will drum up some business. I think if we start winning the local elections that start very soon, that will also drum up some media. I plan to, one of the items that I plan on doing is holding weekly media conferences at the State House to say, you know, we're the Republican Party, this is what we believe in, this is where we're going, this is what's going on Beacon Hill, and we don't agree. We say this, and this is why. And I think by having those weekly press conferences, we will drum up a little bit more interest, but it will take one success after another to start getting them really interested. And as far as the more modern media, text messaging, blogs, emails, that's fantastic. I mean, that starting to have good data, to have good email addresses, to have good cell phone numbers, to send people text messages about what's going on, that's really the way that everyone's so mobile these days that we can definitely use the modern messaging to our advantage.
Susan, you have a question?
No,
Sorry. Is that correct?
I don't think I told you that I have 23 years in the Air Force Reserve Guard, the Air Reserve Forces, some active duty with that. About 10 of it was as a public relations or a public affairs officer, where we dealt with internal communications, putting out a monthly newsletter, and community relations through Chamber of Commerce's and so forth, and media relations. And as a public affairs officer, I was trained to do press conferences, write press releases, do stories, photojournalism, and supervise the whole staff in meeting the deadlines and so forth. When dealing with the media, and we know that typically they're not our friends, we need to find creative approaches and different types of media to help us get our calling out or our message out. With the mainstream media, we should be very careful, very well prepared, and only approach them on our terms, with our agenda. And if they don't want to talk about it in the way we want to talk about it, then we won't talk, because we have work to do. I think one of my jobs will be to go around the state and help train these local city and town committees to do their own media relations in a non-hostile environment. If they have activities they're doing, they're holding meetings, they have some kind of activity, whether it's a rally or a fundraising drive or a voter registration drive, or they have an educational outreach where they bring people in to a banquet facility to learn about an issue and have dinner and fellowship, then they should be asking for media up front. They should have all the media contacts, from cable access news to the mainstream media, print and broadcast. That means broadcast radio and television. And they should be trained, or somebody within the region should be trained to write press releases. And if they can't write a press release, I'd be happy to do it for them. That's free media. That's what they call publicity, free press. And the press releases should go out several weeks before an activity or event, and they should keep going out up to the event, and they should probably go out after the event if the media didn't do a story. I've done a lot of events, dinners, educational outreaches where television news media shows up with the hot lights and the cameras, and I'm not necessarily the guy to speak to them. They might be looking for somebody different. As a public affairs officer for Air Operations Wing, they didn't come to speak to me most of the time. They came to speak to the aircraft mechanic, to the pilot, to the base commander, and it was my job to make sure these folks that I was going to put before camera or give to a media member for the afternoon, that they knew the do's and don'ts of dealing with the media. Again, we have to be prepared, planned, and only work with the media based on our agenda. If they're not interested in that, then we have better things to do. My primary job is to go build committees throughout the whole state that can support state representative candidates and all the other candidates below that and above it, if possible.
Internet?
The internet. We should use technology, obviously. I've been doing a lot of internet blogging for many, many years, and I've built up email distribution lists for different issue groups, for different regions of Republicanism, and I send out propaganda quite a bit. If you're not on my list and you want to be on one of my many lists, please let me know. Exchange your email address with me, and what I do is I generally send out activities and events in a very cryptic form, so you don't have to read a lot, so you know that there's an activity, it's in a location somewhere, it's happening at a certain time, and this is the person to call. And then I might send you some local commentary by a state committee person who's a good writer. Matt Kinnaman in Western Mass writes a lot and is published, so I send out some of his work. I send out some of the other syndicated columnist work, from Pat Buchanan to Grover Norquist. So everybody is in tune with the issues and what people and constituencies are feeling about politics. That's what I do in communications. And the technology, like the text messaging and some of the internet-based stuff, Facebook, we should have all these things at our disposal as a tool, but not use it as a crutch for the real work that needs to get done.
Chairman Green, from Medford.
Thank you. As an advocate for empowering the local committees, I'm glad that both of you have expressed your interest in focusing in that direction. And obviously, it's very important that we all know. It's very interesting to hear. If I understand, Mike, you've run for office 2 or 3 times, and you've worked as a principal in at least one other election that wasn't yours. You work primarily in your town or ward committee.
Yes.
But you talk about blogging, but I don't know if that's an affiliation in the party. I'm curious about your further background, because experience bringing to the table is where I'm going with this. And in Jennifer's case, you're the legal representative of the YR. You came to the state just only in the last few years, recently elected 9 months ago to state committee. And notwithstanding your degrees, and other than being a finance officer on Dan Grabaska's campaign, I'm not aware of your other political experiences outside of the last 9 months. And I do know that there are open areas in your district. As far as I know, you haven't reached out to them. So I'm curious, like him, to have both of you answer, what experiences that you may not have enumerated that I and Monica and Al and others will use to judge both of you. I don't know who's first in this.
I am on the executive board of the Western Mass Republicans. We have a board of 6 with a membership of about 150. I've been on that board for several years, and prior to that, I was always there in support of the Western Mass Republican, the regional organization, and I do all the press relations for local committees, any committee that asks me to do press relations, news releases, and so forth, and follow-up, like the Ward 5 Republicans out of Holyoke, the Western Mass Republicans. Whenever there's press-related stuff to do, I tend to get the job and to keep everything moving through the whole process. I've put several hundred hours of professional work into the Western Mass Republicans over the last few years, and they rely on me for a great deal. I'm a strong administrator and executive. I've been trained by the Air Force, not only as a public affairs officer, but an executive officer, in which I've worked for one-star generals and full-bird colonels, men and women alike, and I've typically done a lot of the work that they don't like to do, because they're in meetings throughout the whole day. I'm generally managing their programs, whether they had to do with writing reports, internal investigations, appraisals of other officers, things like this. So I have with my MBA and the experience and the training the Air Force gave me, I think I have more than enough qualifications to do this job.